We throw beach towels into the breeze, ease our backs into the sand, close our eyes and ask the sun to stay out just a little bit longer. And we don't run when the heat gets stronger, we just lather our skin with sunscreen, close our eyes again, and drift off into a silent sleep, knowing we're protected from whatever else the day might bring. This protection is beautiful. She asks me if she's beautiful every Friday night. Standing at the foot of the stairs, she asks me if she looks alright, and if only she could see what I see through my eyes. How the flowers turn their face to her stride, how the rainbow for smiles enough to overcast the skies. I tell her she's beautiful, and I mean it, cause she's been flipping through magazines again, so it's gonna be hard for her to see it, but I see it, I know it. The same way I know the metal still shines behind the rust, I know her beauty lingers, like the band of skin still holding her natural skin tone behind the diamond ring on her finger. I know her beauty lingers behind stilettos and name brand clothes, salon haircuts and makeup. I ask her, do you know why they call it makeup? Because too much of it makes you make up lies about who you really are, and you already shine brighter than any star. You can see it if the city would only turn its lights off for once, but it seems the world has forgotten where the shine should really come from. We're thinking outside in instead of inside out, baby. That was some of that lipstick off your mouth that makes my cheeks feel greasy. Some days, she doesn't believe me. Those days when she's at her worst, when nothing else hurts more than her reflection staring back at her. Every tear drips like Chinese torture. Face down in the aftermath, her confidence shattered into a pile of broken mortar. She is left defenseless while we make battlefields out of skin, silicone and collagen being buried beneath like landmines. We're recruiting girls as young as 9, putting them through boot camps of crash diets and bulimia, using Revlon for war paint, Gucci for body armor, Coach purses as weapons of mass distribution. Beauty versus vanity, and vanity is slicing beauty up her sternum to expose her flaws for the rest of the world to gawk and laugh at. If you think I'm taking that metaphor a little to the extreme, ask yourselves how many times we've cut down others for not meeting our superficial expectations. Yesterday, I saw a 14-year-old girl wearing a skirt shorter than my father's ambition, and I can just imagine that while she powders her face in the bathroom, downstairs on the TV, pedophiles are getting caught staring stupid into the hidden cameras of Dateline NBC. I wish I could tell her I'm sorry we let you down. I promise you can return to slumber parties and gossiping about boys when the world decides to finally come around. I am not self-proclaimed righteous. In fact, I've stared at more cleavage than I can count. But if there's any glimpse of any honesty left in me, then let this poem be the way that honesty should sound. You're beautiful, and I'll repeat it until it saves you, until you learn you can spend an entire lifetime in a bathroom, but it will never compare to how perfect you already are, exactly the way God made you. So let the flowers turn their face to your radiance, let your heartbeat pulsate to your skin, marvel at your magnificence in the mirror, spin then do it again. Beauty is nothing more than confidence, and vanity is nothing more than shackles, and love will never equal a man whose knees are scraped with carpet burns from trying to run out your door with his pants around his ankles. Wear your smile like a sundress, wear your mystique like sunscreen, to protect yourself from being burned by the sheer ugliness of beauty magazines, because the sun is shining and the sunscreen will help you see that the protection will always be beautiful, just as you will always be beautiful. You will always be beautiful to me. What's going on, NACA? What's up? Damn, y'all look so good right now. Thank you guys so much. We are so excited to be here. I've seen a lot of familiar faces and old faces and all that. And, listen, we don't have a lot of time up here. And I want to get as many poems in this set as possible. So I'm not going to get into what this next poem is about. But a lot of you who know my story know that it's a very meaningful poem to me. So this poem I dedicate to my sister, Kate Sampson. And this is for her. When the snow falls in the winter, the woolly caterpillar crawls into a crevice and freezes to death. Its blood stops flowing, its lungs hardens into ice, its heart comes slowly to a halt. The heart is always the last to go. But when the snow melts in the spring, the ice thaws from its ventricles, the crystals dissolves from its lungs, and just as slowly as it died, the woolly caterpillar awakens and comes back to life. For 120 hours, we waited for my sister to wake up. My family mumbling prayers around the doctor who tells us she fell into a coma when a blood vessel hemorrhaged, and my father hasn't stopped praying since. My stepfather searching the eyes of doctors for the answers to those prayers. My siblings pushing me into the room as though I could perform a miracle. My mother making twin towers of my arms the way she crashes into them now, while I attempted to believe that my faith far exceeds science and God would awaken her somehow. Awaken, sweet sister. Tell me that my tears, the size of mustard seeds, will fall upon your cheek and move the mountain of swelling in your brain. Tell me that the same God who makes all things possible can still live up to his name, because right now, that name belongs to your mother, who's cursing God for being too coward to make up his own mind as she stares at the medical forms granting the hospital permission to let you die. If he wants her, then take her, she says. Who am I to decide? And by her side is your fiancé, whose fists are stones he's ready to throw if the doctor mentions organ donation just one more time. But your father, he sits still praying at your bedside, wrapping rosaries around your hands and tucking prayer cards behind your neck. God will resurrect my daughter, he says. Please, God, tell me she'll resurrect. How do I respond? How do I agree when the tubes of your IV intertwines around my throat, strangles my voice every time I plead? Awaken, sweet sister. Make this poem easier to write. Tonight, pull out the respirator in your throat and speak the words that will end this poem brighter than how it begun. Remove the tubes and we'll blow kisses into your veins, that you may know where the true source of your life comes from, how it comes from your heart, how in this hurricane world you broke into tiny pieces, dropped them like care packages on our laps. You always had enough of it to give, which is why there are 200 people in the waiting room now, ready to give it back in case you need it to live. But on the 7th day, the doctor gave us the results of the last test my sister will ever take, and I swear I'm not built for earthquakes like that. My knees buckling like a bridge, my arms shaking too much to catch another one of my mother's crash landings. None of us was left standing. We were all falling through the cracks, falling until we hit the floor of her room that night. This is what rock bottom must look like. The nurse disconnecting her machines, our hands stretching to touch a part of her as we wailed, our tears dropping as fast as her heartbeat, our sanity vanishing with her breath. Faster it faded, my stepfather stroking her face. Faster it faded, my father presses her hand to his cheek. Faster it faded, we're still waiting on a miracle. Faster it faded, my face planted to my mother's belly. Mommy, this hurts. Faster it faded, and then it was finished. The monitors dropped to 0, and as her breath emptied and her heartbeat slowed, her fiancé removes the ring from her finger, ties it to his necklace, and says, how fitting. It was her heart that was the last to go. It was silent after that. Silent as my mother reaches over to close her daughter's eyes. My stepfather releases a long-awaited sigh. My sibling straightens the creases in her blanket while my father unravels the rosary from her hands, takes the prayer cards from behind her neck and slips them into his pocket, places a kiss on her forehead, her chest, and both her shoulders. Put in a good word to God for us, he says. That's when I knew that all along we had failed to see the light at the end of this tunnel she was going through. Because while we were praying for her awakening, the awakening was really meant for us, to remind us that life is a coma we can still choose to wake up from. That faith means not having to wait for the sun to come, because sometimes the sun doesn't come, but we can still rise on our own. Her last breath has already blown life into the candles of our bones, with nothing more but a wish that we may live more fully. The woolly caterpillar freezes to death in the winter and comes back to life in the spring. For 14 years, goes through the same cycle of awakening, waiting until the final year when its work is complete, then spins itself into a cocoon to be reborn a moth and fly away for good. So sleep now, sweet sister. You surrendered your life for too many winters, we'll take it from here. Sleep now wherever you wake, may you be reborn with wings on your back, flying to the sun, knowing when our own winter ends, spring will come and we'll see each other again. But until then, yeah, put in a good word to God for us. You know, when we found out we got NACA about 6 months ago, we were so excited, man. We started preparing right away. We had this whole set figured out, and you know, what we didn't want was, we didn't want to end our set with all of you crying, you know what I mean? We didn't want to end it on a sad note, because really the poem about my sister is not sad. It's not about death. It's about life, you know, and we had this whole thing figured out. But then today, I was in a lobby, and I saw all of you coming in from wherever you were coming in from, all happy, and everyone smiling and laughing. And then at the same time, my wife just gave birth to our first child a month ago. Yeah. She FaceTimed me with a picture, and she put, "Good luck tonight, Daddy. I know you got this," right? And it moved me to write a poem, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do something that you normally don't ever want to do at a NACA Nationals, which is try something new, right? But you know what? I wanted to write a poem that honors all of you and all of us and my son. And so, if it's okay with you, would you like me to go ahead and gamble and go ahead and try out a new poem that we spent the last? So by the time I get to your school, this is gonna be perfect, right? But right now, we're gonna try something new. He just came up with the music today, and we've been practicing it for the last 6 hours. See, he looks nervous, all right? But you know what? We're gonna do it anyway, and I hope you like it. So here you go. My aunt once told me, on the day I was born, my father held me as carefully as a ticking bomb, brought me close and said, "I promise you everything." Alive, with the inhale of our first breath, our hearts swing open like the doors to an empty new house, waiting to be filled with everything we love. And in that moment, as our eyes learn how to squint at the blinding light, we are filled with the hope that everything in our sight is attainable. My wife, her water broke at 10:40 that night, and over the next 24 hours of her labor, I paced back and forth in that hospital room, confident that I would be the most amazing father, looked at myself in the mirror and said, "Who said this parenting thing is going to be hard? Maybe they just don't have it figured out like you. Let's face it, you're pretty awesome." But by that following evening, there was my son, crying in my arms, me not knowing how to make him stop, and all I could think was, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But I remember Genesis 3:19, from ashes we come and to ashes we return, but I'm not here to wave Bibles. This is not about how to be holy. This is about being born, how we've struggled since the womb, pushed out into a world that looks at my son with thoughts of eating him alive, because the day we are born is the day we begin to die. So I had to learn how to wield pens to keep death at bay 3 minutes and 10 seconds at a time. I learned how to write poems on my palms, but I always stayed between the lifelines. But sometimes I'll let them write themselves past the margins and into my fingers, so I'll always remember to count my blessings. And I'm counting my blessings, even the ones that hurt, even the ones that carved themselves deep into my bones. It reminds me I've survived. It reminds me one day my son will have carvings of his own, and I'll have to teach him, look, the hurt we sometimes feel is just this life's way of adorning us from the inside. So search for me from the inside, all that's come and gone, how I lost my friends in my parents' divorce, how I lost my first child to a miscarriage, how I lost my sister to a headache, how I lost a testicle to a cancer that says it's likely I will never have children. So yeah, the world can call me a loser, but today I hold a son who giggles every time I say the word statistic. Alive, alive, how glorious to be alive, our hope riding on our backs, our legs stretched to the horizon we stand, though sometimes trembling, staring into the unknown we stand, writing stories with our heels, all of us a testament of survival. You know what? Everybody stand up right now. Everybody. Come on. Stand up. Stand up. Look around you. Every one of us alive in this moment. Every one of us a story still being written. Look around you. Look past the blur of the crowd and see the faces. We are all the dream chasers, the heartbeats that have managed to hold on just a little bit longer. You are the fulfillment of answered prayers. So go, bring into existence all the greatness you've been promised. Turn every story on your fingers into blessings you will count again and again. Alive, alive. How glorious to be alive, because the day we are born is the day we begin to die, but not today. Today we look death in its eyes and say, not today. Today I'm grinding my name off the tombstone. Today there's a fight in me to survive. Today I'm writing my story between the lifelines because I somehow made it past yesterday. And who knows if I'll be around tomorrow, but today, in this moment, I'm alive, and I've been told that I am promised everything. Thank you guys for having us, man. We'll see y'all at the booth.